Welcome back to Lit Talks with Ruben and Jonah, the podcast where we unravel the layers of some of the greatest literary works ever written. I am Ruben.
And I am Jonah. Today, we're diving into O. Henry's short story, The Last Leaf, a tale that combines art, sacrifice, and the enduring power of hope.
O. Henry, known for his clever twist endings, wrote The Last Leaf in 1907, and it's become one of his most celebrated works. It is a short story with a big heart, and it explores themes that still resonate today, like friendship, resilience, and selflessness.
If you're new to the story, don't worry. We're going to walk you through the plot, the characters, and the themes. Plus, we'll reflect on how it connects to our lives and experiences.
So grab a cup of tea, settle in, and let's uncover the magic behind The Last Leaf.
Before we dive into our analysis, let's set the stage for our listeners who might not have read the story. The Last Leaf is set in Greenwich Village, New York, in a small community of struggling artists. The story takes place during a harsh autumn, adding to the gloomy atmosphere.
The plot revolves around three main characters. First, there's Johnsy, a young artist who's bedridden with pneumonia, a common and often fatal illness at the time. She becomes convinced that her fate is tied to a vine outside her window. As the vine's leaves fall one by one, Johnsy believes that when the last leaf falls, she too will die.
Then there's Sue, her friend and roommate, who does everything she can to keep Johnsy's spirits up. Sue is a fellow artist, and while she's also struggling financially, she remains optimistic and supportive.
And finally, there's Berman, an elderly artist who lives in the same building. He's described as a gruff man who has spent decades talking about creating a masterpiece but has never done so. Despite his seemingly grumpy demeanor, he cares deeply for Johnsy and Sue.
The turning point comes when the last real leaf falls. Overnight, Berman paints a realistic leaf on the wall to give Johnsy hope. She wakes up, sees the leaf still clinging to the vine, and finds the will to live. Tragically, Berman catches pneumonia after working in the cold and dies, but his act of sacrifice saves Johnsy.
It is a short story, but it's packed with meaning. The twist ending, where we learn about Berman's selflessness, is classic O. Henry.
Now that we've set the stage, let's dive into the analysis.
Let's start with the characters. Jonah, who do you think is the most intriguing character in The Last Leaf?
I have to say Berman. At first, he seems like a minor, almost comic character. He's old, cranky, and hasn't achieved much in his career. But by the end, he's the true hero. His painted leaf becomes his masterpiece, not because of its artistic value, but because of its impact on Johnsy's life. What about you?
Oh my god, I agree about Berman, but I also find Johnsy fascinating. Her belief that her life is tied to divine is heartbreaking but so relatable. It is easy to fall into despair when you're facing something as overwhelming as a serious illness. Johnsy's journey from helplessness to recovery is so moving.
And then there's Sue, who's like the glue holding everything together. She's not as dramatic as Berman or Johnsy, but her quiet strength and loyalty make her a deeply admirable character.
Exactly. Sue's role as the caretaker shows the importance of friendship. She's there for Johnsy even when it's exhausting and emotionally draining. Without Sue, Johnsy wouldn't have made it through.
What I love is how each character represents a different aspect of resilience. Berman sacrifices himself, Sue supports Johnsy through thick and thin, and Johnsy eventually finds the strength to fight for her life. It's such a beautifully balanced trio.
Let's talk about the setting. Greenwich Village plays such an important role in the story. Jonah, what stood out to you about the way O. Henry describes the setting?
I loved how the setting feels so intimate. The small, shared spaces of the artist community create a sense of connection between the characters. At the same time, the cold, dreary weather adds to the feeling of isolation and despair, especially for Johnsy.
The vine outside the window is also such a powerful symbol. It's not just a piece of the setting, it becomes a reflection of Johnsy's state of mind. As the leaves fall, her hope fades, and when the last leaf remains, it reignites her will to live.
O. Henry is so good at making the setting feel alive. It's like the world outside the window is a character in its own right. The setting isn't just a backdrop, it's an active part of the story's emotional journey.
Okay, let's get into the themes. Jonah, what do you think is the central message of The Last Leaf?
I think the story is ultimately about hope and the power of selflessness. Berman's painted leaf gives Johnsy a reason to fight for her life. It's a reminder that even small acts of kindness can have a huge impact.
Definitely, and I think it's also about the transformative power of art. Berman's painting isn't just about a clever trick. It's a masterpiece because it saves a life. It shows that art isn't just about aesthetics, it's about connection and meaning.
There's also a theme of sacrifice. Berman gives his life to save Johnsy, even though she'll never know the full extent of what he did. It's such a selfless act.
And I think the story also explores the idea of resilience. Johnsy's journey from despair to hope shows that even in the darkest moments, there's always the potential for renewal. So, Jonah, if you were in Berman's shoes, do you think you would have done what he did?
Oh my god, that's such a tough question. I'd like to think I would, but it's hard to say. His level of selflessness is so rare. What about you?
I don't know if I'd have the courage. Berman's act of sacrifice is so profound. It makes you question your own capacity for kindness and bravery.
And what about Sue? Do you think she handled Johnsy's despair in the best way?
Yes, I do. Sue showed so much patience and love. Sometimes, just being there for someone without even trying to fix everything is the most important thing you can do.
Oh, that's such a great point. And I think the story reminds us that even small gestures, like Sue sitting by Johnsy's bedside, can make a world of difference.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. The Last Leaf might be a short story, but it leaves a big impression.
Absolutely. It's a story about hope, sacrifice, and the power of art to change lives. If you haven't read it, we hope this episode inspires you to check it out.
And if you have, let us know what you think. Share your thoughts on the themes, characters, or anything else that stood out to you.
Know more about us. Visit our FB page, the Lingophiles Organization. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Lit Talks.
Until next time, keep reading and reflecting. Bye, everyone.
Bye!